What's up, beautiful people? Today we're going to be checking out some more updates of African nations trying to stand against Western exploitation and also breaking free from post-colonization measures in Africa. Let's get to this one. You're gonna like it.
Africa has stood against Western exploitation, a stance the U.S. never saw coming. The continent is boldly demanding an end to its exploitation. This newfound courage has been fueled by China, which has emboldened Africa to take the long-desired steps it always yearned for. The transformation is remarkable. Africa is rapidly emerging as a new powerhouse. It's ending its ties with the U.S., stepping into the arena of competition. This shift poses a significant threat to the West, as losing control over this resource-rich region would be a massive blow. The West finds itself powerless in the face of this changing dynamic. So how did such a monumental shift occur? Let's find out. Welcome back to another exciting episode of our channel. Innovation Diary brings you China's innovation stories, projects, and growing influence in different parts of the world. If you are new to the channel and enjoy learning about fast-paced modernity, especially China's development and growing power, you will find our videos intriguing. In this video, we uncover the reasons behind Africa's evolving stance towards the U.S. We will also discover how China's influence has empowered the continent. Make sure to watch until the very end to know whether the U.S. can regain its dominion in this region.
Dominion?
Let's get started.
I don't think dominion is a good word. Like, you do not want to regain dominion over another man's land. Like, that is colonization at its finest with that word.
Recent years have cast a threat over the once promising relationship between the United States and Africa. The tenure of former President Donald Trump left a pathway of strained ties and missed opportunities, as U.S.-Africa relations survived rough storms. The repercussions of this era continue to ripple through the diplomatic sphere, raising the question, can the recent attempts to revive engagement under the leadership of U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken repair the relationship? The problem between the U.S. and Africa relations has always increased. The main issue was that the U.S. was on the taking end, and Africa was always on the giving end. It has always been exploited by the U.S., and in Trump's rule, things even got worse. Trump's decisions, such as withdrawing support from climate change funds targeted at Africa, highlighted a lack of commitment to issues crucial for the continent's sustainable development. Amidst the ground of strained relations, Antony Blinken's recent visit to Africa carried the promise of change. Blinken, the U.S. Secretary of State, announced a reboot in U.S. engagement, signaling a renewed effort to rebuild the bridges that had been eroded over time. This declaration acknowledged the vital role that Africa plays on the global stage and aimed to address the sense of neglect that had permeated previous interactions. For decades, Africa has been a region that's experienced exploitation from various global powers, particularly the United States. However, a new dawn is emerging on the continent as the age-old alliance founded on exploitation begins to crumble. The catalyst behind this transformation is none other than China, along with the support of Russia. In an era where geopolitical dynamics are undergoing profound shifts, Africa's choice to align with these nations signifies a significant departure from the past. The history of Africa's interaction with global powers has often been marred by exploitation, leaving scars that have taken time to heal. While the United States played a role in this historical exploitation, the winds of change are sweeping through the African continent. The traditional dynamics of dominance are being replaced with an alliance that holds promise for a more equitable partnership. But the U.S. efforts also continue. So, will the U.S. efforts work? The question that dominates is whether the U.S. efforts are too little or too late. The impacts of strained relations are not easily brushed aside, and the wounds of neglect take time to heal. Can Blinken's words translate into meaningful actions that steer the course towards flourishing ties, or will they remain as quick promises in a rapidly changing world? Efforts to revitalize U.S.-Africa relations must go beyond mere words. Concrete steps are needed to rebuild trust and demonstrate a genuine commitment to mutual prosperity. As Africa seeks economic growth, sustainable development, and a stronger global voice, it needs reliable partners who are invested in its success. But according to experts, Africa no longer wants to fix its relations with the U.S. The reason for this change in attitude is because of China and Russia. China and Africa's relations have gotten deep in the last few years, and the influence of China and Russia has increased in Africa. China's and Russia's growing influence in Africa isn't solely about expanding their global reach. It's also about offering an alternative to the exploitative relationships of the past. These two nations have positioned themselves as partners that genuinely prioritize Africa's development rather than seeking to extract its resources without fair compensation. This shift resonates deeply with African nations that have long sought a pathway to progress without compromising their sovereignty. One of the fundamental reasons for Africa's alignment with China and Russia lies in the approach to aid. Unlike previous relationships where assistance often came with strings attached, China and Russia have demonstrated a commitment to empowering Africa without ulterior motives. The aid they provide isn't just about economic investment, it's about building infrastructure, fostering education, and nurturing industries that will lead to sustainable growth. China has provided aid that has empowered Africa a great deal. China's ambitious Belt and Road Initiative has been a game changer for Africa.
So somebody said in a video, and we had seen, I think it was CBC News, they said China is basically giving this aid to Africa as a loan, and if Africa cannot pay back, what they do is they come in and buy a part of Africa for cheap, basically because Africa owes them. Let me know what you think about that. I did share my thoughts on what I thought in that video, and my thoughts were basically saying this would be the same strategy the West, would use on Africa. I don't know if China is doing this for sure, but we've seen that the West has done this for sure,
Investing in critical infrastructure projects such as roads, ports, and energy facilities, China is catalyzing economic development in a tangible and transformative way. These initiatives not only enhance Africa's connectivity, but also contribute to its self-reliance, reducing its dependence on exploitative relationships. Russia's engagement with Africa also centers on mutual respect and empowerment. By focusing on areas such as agriculture, energy, and technology, Russia aims to help African nations unlock their potential while preserving their sovereignty. This approach resonates with African leaders keen to collaborate with partners who value their autonomy and agency. Africa's alignment with China and Russia signifies a shift from historical exploitation to a new chapter of progress and partnership. While challenges undoubtedly remain, the course promises greater self-determination and economic empowerment. The continent is choosing collaboration over subjugation and development over stagnation. But will China and Russia be able to save Africa from future exploitation? Before we continue further, tell us, are you loving the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel for more videos about China's development, power, and influence on the world. Let's continue now. The history of U.S. engagement with Africa has carved a complex narrative marked by exploitation elements. A new dynamic is painting a vibrant shade onto Africa's canvas. The alliance between China and Russia is reframing the narrative, setting a stage where empowerment overshadows exploitation. The core of this transformation lies in their...
Okay, so the context of this video is saying empowerment overshadows exploitation, which in his context, I assume it means Russia and China are empowering Africa, while the Western nations like the US are exploiting Africa. Feel free to talk to me if you think that's a valid point.
Their approach to Africa's development. The U.S. has not consistently prioritized Africa's well-being in its foreign policy decisions. The continent's concerns have often taken a back seat, as evidenced by Trump's actions. His administration curtailed foreign aid to the region and overlooked critical issues such as health and food security.
Why is he repeatedly blaming Trump? This happened before Trump. It was happening for a long time. It's like, okay, what of the one that happened outside the United States and other Western nations, did Trump cause that as well? Now, I'm not saying Trump did not have his fair share. Maybe he did. I don't know for a fact. But also there's been traces and patterns that has happened outside of the United States and also pre-Trump era,
Moreover, the U.S. encouraged African nations to make divisive choices amid great power competition while keeping crucial resources and financing out of reach. These actions have raised doubts about America's genuine commitment to Africa's autonomy and development. The promise of Africa's inclusion in the Group of 20 and other economic groupings does little to address the core issue. Africa's development should not be based on U.S. approval. Past instances indicate that U.S. influence over financial institutions can hinder multi-billion-dollar assistance. imposing conditions that undermine true progress. To truly empower Africa, any aid extended should be unconditional and respectful of the continent's sovereignty. Unfortunately, the U.S.'s refusal to embrace such an approach is evident. The words of David Shin, a seasoned diplomat with extensive African experience, echo loudly. Africa has always been at the bottom of the U.S. foreign policy priority list. This prioritization gap raises doubts about the potential for meaningful common ground between the U.S. and diverse Africa. The notion of strengthening partnerships becomes questionable when such efforts fail to materialize at all. China and Russia's strategies align with Africa's aspirations for equitable growth. Their emphasis on sectors like agriculture and energy resonates with the continent's needs. Rather than perpetuating dependency, these nations strive to enable self-sufficiency through skill development, technology transfer, and responsible resource management. The U.S., in its goal of influence, seeks to rival China's presence in Africa. Such aspirations are colored by a Cold War mentality, driven by strategic interests that may undermine Africa's true potential. The exploitation of Africa for U.S. geopolitical interests is undeniable. The rhetoric surrounding destabilizing effects conveniently overlooks U.S.-backed terror groups and militias that have destabilized the continent. The U.S.'s approach of using Africa as a stage for its power play contradicts the genuine partnership that Africa needs. Africa's skepticism toward U.S. promises reflects a reality. The U.S. has consistently undervalued Africa's economic potential and sidelined its vast market influence. This stands in contrast to China and Russia's approach, which embraces a diverse pool of international investors keen on Africa's sustainable development. Africa has decided to choose China and Russia over the U.S., and this will save it from exploitation. China will not allow the U.S. to exploit its ally any longer. We would like to take a moment here and appreciate you all for commenting and sharing your opinions. Your insights always impress us. Considering Africa's historical experiences, do you think its decision to align with China and Russia reflects a desire for self-determination and autonomy?
So let's end that one right there. I believe he's just rounding up. That was a very good video with a lot of information. And with regards to his questions, whether Africa's relationship with Russia and China is better than Africa's relationship with US, I think it might be. And this is the point. So if you check the forums, the big forums, the big organizations, the UN, the IMF, and all of those things, repeatedly it's shown that it's not always respecting African nations. African nations don't feel like they have leverage when they are speaking in those forums. They don't feel respected or recognized even. So Russia and China coming out to be an alternative feels like a new breath of fresh air. It's like, we've seen this for so long. What do you have to offer? That's basically the first step to see it. And also, African leaders are becoming wiser now. They recognize a lot of post-colonization trends and moves. So they are smarter and wiser now to know what to pick in this case. I don't know what kind of deals China and Russia is offering to Africa, but it definitely seems like it is a better offering compared to what they got from the West, because the West felt mostly like it was not just exploitation, but excessive exploitation. We've seen cases in Niger repeatedly. In fact, it got to a point where some of the African leaders of, I'm not going to call the nations, but some of the African leaders were seen as Western puppets. So the West went as far as mounting leaders just to control Africa. Speculatively, I'm saying. But if that is the case, it's horrible, very, very horrible. I believe with time we're going to tell for a fact the relationship between Russia, China, and Africa. We're going to tell if it's a good one or a bad one. It's going to take time, but we'll see. I really want it to be very good. I'm really praying that this relationship is very good. But the ultimate goal that I want for Africa is for Africa to unite, build their own banks, have their own unity to support each other. That's what I would want. So now when Africa speaks, they are speaking as one unit. We don't have to merge all the countries. I'm not saying that, but we have to be in sync with each other. So when we speak as one unit in the world, they see us as a force, as a strong force, and they respect us as a strong force. Because if you see the population size, the resource size, everything we bring to the table, we have enough to, to be respected. So why aren't we respected? So Africa should come together, be in terms with each other first, have like military alliances and financial alliances, all of those things. So when we say this is not happening, the world stage is going to shake and be like, oh shit, Africa is not with us on this one. That's the kind of leverage we need. Well, it's the end of this video. Share your thoughts, smash the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Have a wonderful day. Peace. I made this bet on my own, bet on my own.